Hello everyone, and welcome to the solution lecture for the largest continuous sum problem. So the problem statement was, given an array of integers that could be either positive or negative, find the largest continuous sum. So our solution goes a little something like this. If the array is all positive, then we just simply need to sum all the numbers. So that makes sense. The negative numbers in the array is what's going to cause us to need to begin checking sequences. So here's the algorithm we're going to follow. We start summing up the numbers and store in a current sum variable. After adding each element, we check whether the current sum is larger than the maximum sum encountered so far. If it is, we update that max sum. As long as the current sum is positive, we keep adding the numbers. When the current sum becomes negative, we start with a new current sum, because a negative current sum will only decrease the sum of a future sequence. And note that we don't reset the current sum to 0 because the array can contain all negative numbers. Then the result would be the largest negative number. So let's go ahead and see the code here and then walk through it and code it out. So we're going to start by just saying, let's go ahead and delete this. Whoops. We're going to start out by naming our function, and we're just going to call it large underscore const for continuous sum, and it takes in an array, in this case our Python list. So we're going to check to see if array is length 0 first, because we know if that the array is length 0, we just return 0. Or you could also put none. So what we're going to do is start the max and current sum at the first element. So I'm going to take in and create two variables. I'm going to say max sum is equal to current sum is equal to the first element, array 0. And now we're going to go through the algorithm. So I'm going to say for every element in the array, so for num in array, and I'm actually going to skip that first element since we've already set it as our maximum sum and our current sum. So I have that going on. And then what I'm going to do is set the current sum as the higher of the two. So I'm going to say current sum is equal to max of current sum compared to, well, plus the number compared to the number itself. So what I'm doing is I have my number, I have my current sum, and I'm setting current sum plus the number we're at right now versus just the given number. Take the max of that and set it to be the current sum. Next, what I'm going to do is my max sum is going to be whichever is greater between the current sum and the current max. So current sum and max sum. And then all I need to do is return the max sum. So let's go ahead and see if this works. I'm going to call and paste. So here I have an array. We have 1, 2, -1, 3, 4, 10, 10, -10, and -1. So our sequence that should produce the highest sum is right here. Let's go ahead and see if it gets it. So it's calculating out and it gets 29. Great. So many times in an interview setting, this question also requires you to report back the start and the end points of that sum. Keep this in mind and see if you can solve that problem. We'll actually see that statement of the problem, returning back the start and end points, later on in the mock interview section of this course. So let's go ahead and walk through the solution one more time. So let's go ahead here and take it step by step. First thing we're just doing an edge case check. If the array length is equal to 0, we just return 0. For the rest of it, this is what we're doing. We're starting by saying the max sum and the current sum is equal to the first element. Then, going along for each number in that array, not including that first element, we take the current sum and find out which is larger, the current sum plus the current number or the current number itself. Then, reset the current sum equal to whichever one of those two is larger. Then we have the maximum sum tracker, and we're going to keep track of current sum and max sum. Whichever one of those is larger gets reset for the max sum. After we go for each number in the array, we'll have our final max sum as basically the largest current sum there ever was compared to the max sum, and then we just return the max sum. Alright, so again, we sum up the numbers and store it in some sort of current sum variable, which was here. Then after adding each element, we check whether the current sum is larger than that maximum sum encountered so far. If it is, then we just updated that maximum sum in this line. As long as that current sum is positive, we can just keep adding the numbers. When the current sum becomes negative, we start with a new current sum. Because a negative current sum will only decrease the sum of a future sequence. And that note here, we're not resetting that current sum to 0 because the array could contain all negative integers. Then the result will just end up being that largest negative number. Okay, so that's it for the solution. Go ahead and go through it. And really make sure that when you're going through this, you're also practicing going through it by hand with pen and paper or on a whiteboard. Alright, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture.